we're going to be looking at a number of things, as it includes your digital safety, and it forms the basis for our healthy Friday, but that could be our Justice Thursday conversation this morning. Not to forget that our live streams, as we're happening, are on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X. Audience on KTN with us this morning. Hannington Chumba is the director of the Kenya Forensics Examiners, and he joins us this morning again for a conversation, one very different from what we've had before. Hannington, good morning.
Good morning to you, Ndu.
How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Karibu sana, good to have you here.
Thanks you for the invite.
Thank you for coming.
I'm always humbled to get an invite from you.
Thank you so much for honouring that every time that you do. Rose Tunguru is a civic tech activist, and you know her because, the case of her creating a website that essentially put your 124s about the finance bill and all of that was then done, and then she was arrested and then charged before court. Those charges have still been have been dropped, and she's free, but the conversation continues. We're having a conversation today around digital safety. Your location is not a status update. She'll join us in a bit, running a few minutes late, but she'll be here all the same. We'll start with you, Hannington, and we'll welcome you with today's proverb, and you let us know what you think about that.
Yeah, our proverb comes from Kenya, and it is coming from the Luo community in the country. And as we talk about Kenya, great economy, but one that is still facing a lot of challenges. Now, we talk about matters to do with the tech, which is your space, and Kenya is considered to be one of the tech hubs in the continent. You talk about the way Kenya changed how mobile money works across the world, and that's something for us to celebrate about. But let's go straight to our proverb today. A hyena cannot smell its own stench. A hyena cannot smell its own stench. How would you interpret that?
A hyena cannot smell its own stench. Very interesting. I would probably interpret it to mean like you cannot... Okay, stench for me is something bad. Stench is something that disgusts, something that you're not really comfortable with, or the people around you are not comfortable with. And so to me, hyena cannot do what?
Cannot smell
its own stench. Is like... I believe you need a friend. You need someone that who can probably tell you the situations about yourself, whether good or bad. Someone who cannot hide you from the truth of the matter, whether good or bad, something like that. It's more like the Kiswahili proverb that says nyani haoni kundule, something like that.
Okay. So, in a bit, Rose will be here, but, as we even begin this conversation, we're looking at digital safety. And, of course, now, everything that you do on this particular space with this internet, who do they say the internet belongs to? Okay. Everything that you do on this space is imprinted forever. There's a footprint. And... it worries people sometimes because it can actually be to your detriment. But then how can you then ensure that you're safe digitally? Let's start off with that as we go into this particular space. What you do, you get on the phone, you're having a conversation with somebody, you're on the internet sending emails, you are, conducting business, whatever the case may be. How do we actually start, first of all, by identifying what digital safety is?
Thank you very much, Ndu. And sure. Today we live in a world that we are afraid of almost everything, and surely true to be afraid because we don't know who is watching. We don't know the kind of information that we have out there and who we are sharing that information with. So digital or online safety is something that we all need to be quite very much aware of, and we need to be very much cautious about. So today, you're not very sure what information someone has about you. For a long time, I've been saying the guilty are afraid, but I've come to realize that there are people who are guilty, but they're not afraid of anything, basically because the kind of information that they, or rather their digital or gadget share about them, may not really put them to a corner where they would feel a little bit guilty, but then they have all the reasons to be afraid. So 95%, I would say your phone is your enemy, but most of the time we tend to think that it's only the phone that has a lot of information that about you, or gives out information about you without your consent. But if we take one step back, we would probably talk about many other things. Your Wi-Fi at home, the one that you put to monitor your house or your house help, how he handles your kid and all that. These are potential enemy. Your watch, for example, it may give, most of our watches these days, we go for a very digitalized watch. You want a watch that would be able to monitor your steps. You want a watch that would be able to probably tell you if you are at the verge of suffering a hypertension or something like that. That information, of course, it's synced to your phone, and then we before you notice it, you start getting all this information, or rather these adverts on your phone telling you that you need to subscribe to 1 or 2, 3 things about hypertension. So your CCTV, your Wi-Fi, your bulb right in your bathroom, the place that you feel so comfortable about, may all be your potential enemies. So yes, it's true that 73% of our information is disseminated out there using our phone, but other than the phone, we also have other gadgets that have the potential of sharing your information without your knowledge.
Yet we live at a time when we pretty much, for us to have normal life today, we depend on all these things, and one would hope that something we never really get to think about. You have your smartwatch. What's the big deal about it? But there is always the fine print. Terms and conditions apply. Terms and conditions apply. So how then would an ordinary individual, an ordinary Kenyan out there, start looking at all these gadgets and tech as a source of it is my own security, but also exposes me? How do we look at it and start taking care of information that we share, or even gadgets that we buy?
All right, you are right very much, Aseto. And let me start by saying that, of course, who are we running away from? Why are we running away from the surveillance, particularly? I would probably say that we are moving back away from the intended objective. All this information that you see around us were particularly meant for a good cause. I am here today, and by the time I leave this place, I'll be getting a lot of information, or rather questions from Google, trying to ask me how is Standard Media Group. Does it have facilities that are comfortable for physically disabled persons? Are they able to access various departments or sections within the Standard Media Group with ease? Those were the intended, I would say, the intention of surveillance from the beginning. But we would probably say that as we speak today, there are a lot of information that we give out there without our knowledge. And as we move around, we end up knowing or not knowing, sharing a lot of information. So if I probably would ask today here, I know we have a mobile phone all around us, and I don't know how comfortable it would be for us today to say that we would be able to survive without our phone. How long would you probably, Dennis, or stay away from your phone, and what would be the impact of you staying away from your phone? So one thing that I probably get most of the time is when I ask this question, why do you think you're being surveyed, or rather, why are you afraid of surveillance? These issues, or the answers that I get out of that question, would rotate about political issues, social issues, and economic issues. So when you look at each of those, you'd want to know exactly that the impact would be huge as compared to when you probably lived in the prehistoric time before the advent of technology.
Hannington, I'll cut straight to the chase. I have my phone here, and I'm afraid my enemies are tracking me, and I don't want to be tracked.
Sorry.
Okay? So I want you to tell me what do I need to do to stop my enemies from following me after I leave this studio to where I reside. I don't want anybody to know where I am. I don't want anybody following me or my activities. How do I protect myself from the footprints of being followed? Because you earlier spoke, there's a phone, there's Wi-Fi in the house.
Here's your watch.
You don't actually have a digital watch.
Sure.
Now I'm even thinking, because I'm not seeing you with one. This is not a digital one, right?
No, it's not.
So I have a digital watch. So do I drop all these things? So how do I then protect myself? I don't want to be tracked by my enemies.
Thank you very much, Okari. And I think you're one very good example that I need to use, because I have had, when you profile the kind of people who would probably suspect that they're being watched or they're being surveyed, most of the time I would say most of them come from either the political part of this community, and journalists are also very much tracked because of probably the kind of things that you share. Okari here is one example. We've enjoyed the exposés that Okari has given us over a period of time, and I believe he has a testimony about it. So the question is, how do I then stay out of the surveillance? And let me just give a rider. So Okari, privacy, if you want 100% privacy, you must also be very, very ready to live a very inconvenient life. Yes, you must also be very ready to live a very inconvenient life. So, for example,
Bushman life.
So yeah, Bushman life. I would say probably you remember the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s, when we had no technology at all. That's the kind of life that you should now envision to live. However, a short answer to your question is that how do I then ensure that I'm able to live a life of no surveillance? Yes, it is possible to live a life of no surveillance. You'd probably be able to mitigate like 60% of surveillance. But as I said, your number one enemy is your phone. Your phone would be sharing a lot of information with other third-party agents without you knowing.
How?
One is that every time you have applications on your phone, you want, or rather, those applications will always give you a kind of a procedure, of course, to install them. One of the procedures I would probably talk about is that your phone would ask you to have access, or rather, those applications would want to have access to your phone, to your microphone. Mm-hmm. It would also want to have access to your phone book. So a very simple application asking access to your phone book. And when you look at what it does, and in the phone book, you don't see the relation. And of course, because you're desperate at that particular time to have that application installed in your phone, you'd probably do what? Say yes. Once you say yes, this application would be running at the background without you knowing. And most of the time, you'll find that someone would say, all right, I'll switch off my phone. But your phone is never off. Your phone is never off. Just by a mere saying shut down or clicking the power off button, it doesn't mean that your phone is off.
What do you mean?
Yes. Of course, you set your alarms, for example, and you shut down your phone. But when it gets to 4:30 or that time you set, your phone goes on. So the question is, how has it actually done? It was off. For you as a layman, you understand that when I say shut down, the phone is off. But your phone comes on at 4:30 or 5, whichever time that you gave it, or rather you subscribe that it should be waking you up, it comes on. So what has been happening? It's been running on the background. And as we sit here today, someone is able to tell that I'm here today, I'm seated next to Dennis Aseto, I'm seated next to Dennis Okari and Ndu.
So wait, Hannington.
How? It's through our phone.
Through your phone. So you've given a classic example of an app. So let's assume it's actually a gaming application I've downloaded to my phone. And among other things, of course, it's sometimes they will ask you to connect your email. They will ask for access to the microphone, to the camera, to contacts, to gallery, and to all that. Then here you're saying, if I switch off my phone, on the back end, somebody can still be able to see, or are you saying somebody's able to access my phone book from the back end because I've clicked OK on my phone? So if I say, OK microphone, OK camera, OK phone book, so on their back end,
They
they're
can see
able to
everything.
actually see everything going on with my phone, access my contacts, listen to my conversations?
You're very right. And that's exactly what I'm saying. That every time you have those instructions to subscribe to any application, those instructions are not merely to tick the box. There is actually the purpose for you to actually give consent to everything that it asks. Google, for example, okay, let me give you a typical example of what happens every day. So most of the time, 9 out of 10 people who come to me and asks me if they are under surveillance, I usually ask, why do you suspect you're being surveyed? Or rather, what informs, what are the things you've seen that makes you feel like you are under surveillance?
A lot of times people say, "Isimu ni moto."
Yeah.
My phone is all of a sudden it's very, very hot.
Sure. And those are traditional ways of monitoring, or rather getting a clue of whether you are being surveyed. Today, a phone that is being tracked, a phone that is under surveillance, is the coolest phone. Traditionally, people used to talk of my phone, the battery gets, heated up, and true, because there's an application that is running perpetually at the background. And so that processor heats up. So you'd expect that, of course, you'll find some heat at the back of your phone. Other phone or other means probably were you could feel an echo. You speak and you hear yourself from the background. Those were some of the avenues. At some point, you would also feel like your calls were dropping. In the middle of the conversation, it dropped. But today, those are not the indicators of a phone that has been tapped. Today, a phone that has been tapped is the coolest phone you'd ever think of. Your conversation would go so smoothly, you would not even imagine that someone is listening from the side. But what I'm trying to say is that we have advanced in a way. We have various means through which I would probably send you a malware, and you will not be able to know that this is actually a source of my data going to a third party. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you have your phone. You have read a very particular information that is actually trending. I would probably look at what is trending today, and I'll look at the Daily Nation or the Standard, and I'll coin a very particular information around it and send it to you. And when you read it, of course, it's what is trending. It's in line with the headlines all over. But behind it, I have probably mailed it the malware. And the moment you click on it, then I have all the information that I want to know about you.
So Hannington, that we're talking about the smartphones that we have right now, and one would say, if the problem is these phones that we can connect to the internet, perhaps I need to go to a feature phone. But then again, we know that feature phones as well are connected to the masts that can track you and trace you to your last destination. Am I correct? Or
You're very correct. Let me probably.
so what's the solution?
All right. I don't want us to get to, I don't want us to rush to the solution. Yeah. I don't want us to rush to the solution. We must, first of all, understand the genesis of the problem as we now work towards the solution. Because the topic we're talking about today is one that everyone, I believe most of us, particularly in Kenya and globally, we are now awoke and we are looking at a point where indeed data privacy is a concern, something that we all need to be concerned about. Let me give you a very typical scenario so that we resonate it well. That you are in the comfort of your bedroom and someone is perpetually watching at you. Someone is viewing each and every move that you make inside your house. How comfortable are you with that?
Is that happening right now?
Do we... I'm giving you a scenario, possibilities of things are.
You're a forensics man, Hannington. The
These
scenario that you're
These things are
painting
happening,
here is you're not just painting a real life situation. We can be honest in this room.
And indeed we are. And I'm trying to say that we are trying to address an issue that is a concern to all of us. So when you sit and you are at the comfort of your room, as I said earlier on, you are not very comfortable with someone who's probably be able to watch you, to get each and every location where you are, to pinpoint exactly where you are, where you've been for the last 24 hours. You're not really comfortable with that. Naturally, human beings are not comfortable to be, surveyed. Rather, to, someone giving a point-to-point location of where you are. And I believe we say God is omnipresent, isn't it? God is omnipresent. But I still believe that if given a chance, probably we would even want to amend even that. We would probably say that can God probably just survey us on Sunday, and after that, in church, let us be free to move on and about wherever we are and come back on Sunday and let us, So naturally, human beings don't like to be surveyed. But the question is, are we able totally to, run away from survey or surveillance? It's not possible. And just as I've said it to Kari, unless you are ready to have a very inconvenient life, then yes, we can live a life of free surveillance.
Why? Okay, I don't. All right, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it a little bit more. But even at this juncture, Rose Tunguru joins us. Everybody knows you. Everybody, and their uncle and the world knows you, Rose. Because first of all, good morning.
Good morning, and so sorry for being late.
How are you doing?
I am well.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
So you, of course, in the conversation already, but we're glad that you joined us in still. And we're talking, of course, about digital safety, and your location is not your status update. That Hannington has just done this fantastic thing where he's scared us to within an inch of our lives to let us know that it's possible that somebody could be watching you, everything that you do. And of course, like I said, everybody knows you, and you created a mini website where Kenyans could get information about the finance bill, and then they could go on to send an email thereafter. Were you shocked that they were able to find you, and where did they find you?
I was shocked that they were able to find me, for sure. And they found me at an event. I wasn't at home.
Okay.
However, during the interrogation, they made it clear that they had been tracking me for a couple of days, and they knew that I was to go to that event. It was on a Friday. And then they also were telling me that morning they had my conversations with a few friends where I was saying, I'm not sure I want to go. So one was like, oh, you come. And the other is like, yeah, me, I also don't feel like going. So I was now the one convincing this person we go. Then this other one is like, I'm not sure I'll come. So they were when they were interviewing me in the evening at around 5, they were like, yeah, we weren't sure you are going. And that hesitance made us wonder when we would catch you, because we've been tracking you. You're always in the house. We just see you going to the shops to take your children to school. So it was very scary to have that realization that, wow, these people have been surveilling me.
Hang on. So your description of that surveillance is, I think, both physical, because if they're able to tell you've left the house, you've gone to a shop, that means somebody was watching you, correct?
Yes.
But when they came for you at that event, is it that you had posted on your socials that you'll be attending that event, or you had not posted and they found you there?
I did not post anywhere. I just informed my mother on call
phone?
the day before, and even on that day that I'm going to this place. I didn't. My friends didn't even know I had like taken a short course or I was being trained. Nobody knew. Just my family and the people I was in the course with. And then, as you're saying, there's that physical aspect which has made me so paranoid that right now if I walk out of my house, I like surveil to see, okay, any unfamiliar cars, faces. And you know, it's Nairobi. You're not going to know everyone.
Yeah.
There'll always be familiar faces. I mean, sometimes I'll be walking and I see a car maybe slowing down. Maybe they want to go to a shop or to whatever, their own business. But the fact that they've slowed down near me, I'll like step back. I'll be like, where's the
Maybe
nearest
it's you.
shop? You know, because it makes you now paranoid. So what else have they been watching? What else have they been? How else are they surveilling me? It makes you really paranoid. And as much as I have nothing to hide, you know, it's an infringement of my rights.
Yeah. So Rose, when they came for you and they took you in, they confiscated your gadgets.
Yes.
So
they did.
now during that time, what exactly? If they told you what were they looking for, and even after the matter was concluded in court, did they return your gadgets?
So when they took the gadgets, one person made a comment like, we want to see if you have the capacity to make these things you're making. And they were taking basically anything electronic. They were even claiming I have a PS, which I don't, but my son games on the computer. So it also, now you see, how did they know that there's someone who like games in the house? And the devices haven't been returned yet, but I'm supposed to meet with my lawyer tomorrow to go there and ask about them.
But you've been cleared of all charges.
Yes.
All charges have been dropped, essentially. And so according to then the proceedings from court, everything that was in relation to this investigation or such should have then been returned to you. So you're going to get to know about that now. You said something that, and this kind of like links to what Hannington was talking about before, that they wanted to be sure of your capacity to do these things. Was there then some kind of suggestion that there was somebody else who was behind this mini website that you had created and that was using you as a mule of sorts?
I think that's what they maybe were trying to find out, you know, because as far as I know, most of the people who've been abducted, the question is always who is funding you, who is behind you. It's like they don't believe that we can just organically come up with these things or not like their policies. They feel like there has to be someone behind it. So I think perhaps that's what they were looking for. Unfortunately, it was just me. Like, it was all just my idea. So unless they come from my brain, I don't know.
So they took your phone, your laptop. What else did they take?
They took my PC.
Okay.
And my smartphone. They were looking for my laptop. They didn't find it. It was just there.
They knew you had another laptop.
Yes, they knew that I had another device. So they were like ransacking the house looking for this other device, which they're saying it's either a PS, it's a laptop, tafteni. And then anytime they find a flash disk, you know how you always have flash disks for like a movie here, your Windows installation, whatever, they were taking them. So I don't know like how they had that information in the first place, what kind of surveillance they must have done, because it's not like I let anyone, just anyone, come visit me or whatever. So
was your phone returned?
I'm supposed to go follow up on them tomorrow.
So Hannington, here is a question where she says the person had actually hinted in terms of we know there's some games that were being played in the house and whatnot. Does that border on snooping into her machine perhaps through the ISP and something like that?
Thank you very much, Ndu, and sorry,
Rose.
Rose.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. I would probably start by saying that, we cannot run away from the big brother. the big brother is always by your side. He walks with you like your shadow, and you can run away from any other person, but really not the big brother.
Who's the big? Okay, sorry.
Big brother.
I'm frustrated. Sorry. Yeah.
Big brother. Sometimes we call them the 3 LNA, rather the 3-letter named agencies. Call them the FBI. Call them the CIA, the CIS.
KGB.
Locally, we
DCI.
probably talk about the G4S. I don't know about the DCI.
G4S.
But G4S. Okay. The 3-letter named agencies, they're always with you. And so sometimes you want to hide, you'd want to move around and probably escape their radar, but it's not possible. It's really not possible. And I started by saying, you're not around, but then I started by saying, and you will probably want to create some kind of a virtual environment around you, but you will not really achieve it 100%. So when you talk about snooping, Aseto, there are various ways that one would probably be able to snoop. And I was giving an example that it's not only your phone, it could be from many other avenues. Bluetooth, we have your speakers, you have your TV at home, we have your CCTV, we have your Wi-Fi from my neighbor's Wi-Fi, which is even stronger than the Wi-Fi that I run at home. Sometimes I use my neighbor's Wi-Fi, and it's not something that I do myself. Even my daughters, as young as grade 6, they're able to do that. And so I'm able to tell where you are at each and every moment. You know, if you're not in the house, I'll be able to know that you're not in the house based on the traffic that is geared towards that Wi-Fi. So when you say that someone was able to, pinpoint exactly where you are, maybe it's not your phone. I started by saying that 73% of our information is shared by our phone. Our phone is our number one enemy. But it doesn't say that that is the only enemy that we have. So if they are able to tell that you have a PlayStation, you say, in your house, probably that is not, it didn't come from your phone. It came from other sources. You have an IP, that is what we call the Internet Protocol. These are the rules that information go through to, move from one channel to another. It's just like the wires that we have connected or interconnecting our facilities from one place to another. So the rules that guide how we communicate online is through an IP.
Hannington, sorry, but now you're talking about monitoring the traffic of internet and how it's being used. Does these agencies, the Big Brother, need permission from an ISP, internet service provider, for them to get this information with regard to the traffic being used, or someone can just get into it?
No. One thing that I must applaud is that we have moved many miles in terms of trying to find the proper way of accessing information in this country. So we have systems in place, we have policies, we have laws in place. We have Article 31, if you can refer to it, on the Constitution, that clearly stipulates how we need to access that kind of information. So, yes, this is something that, if has to be acquired, has to follow a particular law.
But it's clear, like in Rose's
In this
example,
case, what law was it followed?
nothing was
I was never
followed.
shown any kind of warrant,
Yes.
or even when they were taking my devices,
Court order.
any court order, there was no such. They didn't follow the law.
So I think as we move on, we must probably be able to put some recommendation across, because court orders, that is an affidavit, subpoena, and the rest, we have two types of the court affidavits or orders. We have what we call ex parte. Ex parte means I don't necessarily have to inform you, the owner of the account or the owner of the social media account, that someone is here and he wants me to give him this kind of information. It's an ex parte. It is him and the data processor, for example. Yeah. But probably a recommendation going forward would be inter-party, where you are informed priorly before I give that kind of information. You see, the way you consent, when you go to the Data Protection Commission, you have to consent to who accesses your data, for what purpose, for what period. And when you feel that you've had enough of my data, now please delete it or forget about it, So this particular information may have not reached you because the kind of application that someone may have probably provided was ex parte, meaning...
I'm sorry, Hannington. Just to be clear on this, that there's so many things that work in tandem here. Whether we're going to go from data protection, there's an act of Parliament. It's in the legislation of the country. There are also privacy rules and what you can do as pertains to law embedded in the Constitution. We know what the police service, under the auspices of their different agencies, can or cannot do as they work in tandem with the courts. We're not talking about anything untoward or suspicious. We're talking about what the law clearly says. Rose has said very clearly, nobody had, and in fact, we've had today's Justice Thursday, we've had Justice Thursday conversations when lawyers and officers of the judiciary have told us very clearly, in a case where any police officer is investigating, the first thing that they need to do, we've also heard it from senators, Edwin Sifuna has said it here, the first thing that they need to do is communicate with you, either via phone call or something. They will be that first line of communication. Here, what we're talking about is jumping every possible step before they showed up at the event, where they now told her that they have all but told her that they've been trailing her for God knows how many days. And in order for that trail to happen, is what we understand, there needed to be some kind of legal permission. Am I wrong?
You're right.
So there should also be evidence of that legal permission. The same way we are told, if somebody were to show up and arrest you, they have to identify themselves. And here we are saying that many steps have been jumped, whereby they must have identified themselves by the time they caught up with you. But these other things that were done that required legal documentation, access, or accountability was not done. So the question is, are we operating in a position where in a place where anything can be done anytime by anybody if they're in a position of authority from a forensics point of view?
You're right, Ndu. And I started by saying that we are living at a time where everyone is afraid. Everyone doesn't really know or is not very sure what is out there about them. If I probably would just do a random search about Dennis Aseto, I don't know what kind of information would come out.
We know her. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe for Aseto we would really know. But for Njeri, before this incident, most likely we wouldn't even know. And the moment I do it, of course, I would want to try and, bring myself close to the legal boundaries within which I performed a particular act.
No, Hannington, please let me steer you back here to this question. Why is it then that it appears that in some situations, folks don't have to follow the legally outlined channels for getting this kind of information? Or are there some people who can operate above and outside of the law, regardless of their status?
Of course, I think the law stands out and is a common denominator. No one should be able to operate outside the law. Anything that you do outside the law is an illegality. And so at some point, when these things go to court, I think you've always heard of you acquired an evidence through an illegal means. Yeah. And that stands out most of the time. And so when you probably do that, you cannot have a control of how a particular process would go, but you only hope that it will be through the legal provided channels. But that is not necessarily what happens. And that's why we have the law. And when it gets to court, we believe that at some point it will be expunged, because it never followed the law.
All right. So, Jerry, here's a question where you've been using internet in your house. You've had questions of there is a PS in your house that you don't have, which means they've been snooping through your internet and your devices and whatnot. As we speak here today, after the court has cleared your matter, is VPN an option for you? And if so, why?
I definitely use VPN because I'm trying to mask my IP. I understand that if they want you, they'll find you, but I'll make it difficult for them as much as I can. And again, as much as I have nothing to hide, I have a right to privacy, and that's what I'm protecting.
But in the civic tech space, because of what you were doing, there's something you said they asked you, or rather they wanted to know your capacity to do what you're doing, meaning they were watching and following keenly what you were creating, what you were doing, and what you were actually agitating for. Do you think your arrest and the charges which were dropped and where they invoked the Cybercrimes Act on you were meant to deter you from continuing to do what you and your like-minded colleagues within that civic space are currently doing?
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of intimidation. It's like, we are watching you, we see what you're doing, you need to stop. But unfortunately, it makes you now even more focused on that, so it's counterproductive on their end.
And you're not alone in that space.
And
anyway.
I'm not, and in fact, even that emailer is an idea that has been used numerous times. So I think they were just, it's like when you're trying, maybe you have a bunch of, I don't know, insects, and then you like
You swat one.
So I was the one that was just, but I mean, there's many people making many interesting things, and nowadays what I tell them when they like reach out and say, please share my thing, it's interesting, I'm like, please make sure you also protect yourself, because they are petty. They can decide now it's your turn.
Okay.
So
did you pull down your website after this event, and would it mean that going into the future you're not going to go, because you were doing it from a social information, social justice point of view, from what we understand, does that mean that you now pull it down for fear that they might come again?
It's still up. Even though now it can't be, I mean, it's not relevant. The period for the finance bill is over, and I am still working on more things. So it was counterproductive on their end. And now, unfortunately, also, there's a bigger audience than before. Before I'd make, and it's like a few friends use it.
We all didn't know you.
Exactly.
Now we do.
And now you do. Now if I just share, I mean, it gets views, it gets
You say, I'm going to town. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, Rose, from what we were seeing out in the public, what did they really tell you they were arresting you for, really, when you're having those conversations and you're going through that interview?
In that evening, they didn't mention the Cybercrimes Act. They didn't say. They just asked me. So, and this is after like 3 hours of kuzunguka Nairobi. They just asked me, so why did you make this finance bill website? Then why did you make, there's another thing I've made, it's a Chrome extension that changes the president's name to one of his nicknames. So those were the two questions they asked. Then now they have my device. And then I was, unfortunately, another thing I hope you touched on, I was logged in to my device because it's my home device. So like all my accounts, all my information. So they like went through it. They were trying to understand the code, but I think the ones who arrested me don't really understand coding. So they were like, wow, look at this. And it's simple, you know, anyone who's in the tech industry, you can see, this is basic, as you're saying, it's a mini website. So it's not technical, it's simple, it takes like an hour or two to just sit down and finish. But they were like awed about it, which makes me think perhaps maybe the ones who arrested me didn't really understand.
They were just sent to arrest you.
Yeah, they were just sent to arrest me. And now what I didn't like is that they were like going through all my things, you know. And in those days that I was inside, so they probably like go through your emails, your they were logged in everywhere. Even WhatsApp was connected there. So as a matter of advice to Kenyans listening, I would suggest don't stay logged in, or use password managers that you can remotely log out of your accounts with, because that will also add you a layer of protection. As I said, yes, you don't have anything to hide, but this is like your privacy, your stuff. You have a right to privacy. So,
but there was a question of who is funding you to do it.
They didn't ask me like that. I'm just like extrapolating from all the other people I've heard who've been arrested or abducted before. What they asked was, we want to see if you have the capacity to do these things.
And if it was shown that you do not have the capacity, which goes to my other question again, is that there perhaps could be somebody else who was sponsoring you or for whom you were fronting.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the implication I got, but that wasn't directly asked.
Sure.
Yes.
I think as we talk about this, and in terms of your data being misused by the authorities, I think let's just now bring the human face into it. After they took all this information, your WhatsApp, your email, and everything, just how violated do you feel at the moment?
Very. I even texting on WhatsApp right now, as much as I've like mostly secured my accounts, there's still something at the back of my head, like maybe they still have like a back door or something that they can use to access these things. So I'm mostly using secure channels like Signal for important things. But then you still have to communicate, you still have to talk with your friends, still have to say, hey, I'm going for lunch, So I still continue living my life, but right now there's that thing at the back of my mind. Maybe they're listening, maybe they're watching. It makes you paranoid, especially after they tell you we had been, following you for a while, Yeah.
Your son who was playing these games, how during all this, how was he?
I think he was slightly affected by it all, because especially after I came back from the cell, he kept following me now. Like if I'd go to the shop, he'd be behind me. Like maybe he was thinking, let me just make sure she's okay. Although now he's calmed down. But yeah, he's old enough to understand that these are things that you're being followed, Nini. He's old enough to be worried.
Where was he when you were taken? Just a quick question. Where was he when you were taken?
I have two, and they were both in school.
They were both in school?
Yes.
Were they in a boarding school?
It was during the day, so they're both in day school.
Sure, but they came home and you were not there?
They came home, I wasn't there. My youngest went with a neighbor's mom. And then when my mom came from Nyeri, now she went for
So they gave you a phone call to the end, were you able to say, this is where I am?
Yes, I have two phones. I have a feature phone and a smartphone. They had the smartphone, but I insisted on the feature phone, so I just kept calling my mom. We are going here. We're here. So
harrowing one to go through. Rose, thank you for being here. If anything, giving advice to folks. Hannington, Chumba, thank you so much.
Just 1 minute, if you'd allow me to have just 1 minute.
In seconds, yes.
Yeah. So to the many Nigerians out there, I would probably advise you to look into things like the, mailbox.org. There are those applications that would probably give you a one-time email where you subscribe to applications that you no longer want to receive information from. There's they call Hippo, a one-time service provider that would give you a number that you'll probably use and forget about it, so that you don't get any other information out of it. Then there's also clearing of your cache. There's the VPN we are talking about. There's the many other a little bit secure applications or browsers to use.
Okay,
yeah.
That's great information to have.
Yeah.
We can actually use those but thank you both for being here this morning. Hannington, Chumba, and Rose, asante sana for joining us this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.